Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and man, appreciate you guys coming by the channel to spend some time with me and check the video out today. And I want to dig into this again, guys. I've been doing videos over the past 3 or 4 months about the number of people that have been keeping and eating bass being on the rise. And ever since I've been doing those videos, I've been getting a lot of comments because this is a really it shouldn't be, but it's a very controversial subject for some people. Some people are extremely sensitive about it one way or the other. But I am convinced, I'm doing this because of the unbelievable number of comments that I get. I'm convinced that there are more people keeping and eating and cleaning bass than we even realize. I think the number is staggering how many people are doing that now. And I want to dig into this a little bit and really examine some of the root causes, why this is, why there's been such a surge in it, and really offer my opinion on it, what I think the impact this is going to have on our fisheries. So we're going to get into that in today's episode. Definitely looking forward to get your guys' comment on it too. Also, guys, if you saw the video I put out this morning, we just came out, Cumberland Pro Lures, we came out with my new Blaukat Finesse Throwback jig. We've been working on this thing, guys, for the last year. I'm so happy with it. This is a power finesse jig that I've been working with Cumberland Pro Lures over the past year. 3 different sizes, 6 different colors. It's a ball head, turned eye, frog hair, live rubber skirt, hand tied. Guys, this is the finest little finesse jig that you'll throw that's on the market. I mean, I'll put it up against anyone out there. So I'll put my Tackle Warehouse link in the description to the Blaukat Throwback Power Finesse jig if you guys would like to pick a few up. So man, I can't wait to really give it a good go this fall. We've been testing prototypes for the past year, but I've got 3 tournaments coming up over the next month, and this is definitely going to be the primary tool of mine in those next 3 tournaments here. Okay, guys. Now, one of the things about this is, like, anytime I talk about, if I even bring up the topic of keeping and eating bass, there's going to be a segment of the top population that go off on it. Randy, you're full of it. Bass are here for us to eat. We don't give a damn about catch and release. We don't care about tournaments. If we catch a bass, I don't care if it's 12 inches or 12 pounds, we're going to clean it out and eat it. You get a lot of that. And the reason I'm doing this video, guys, is there are so many people out there like that, and it hasn't been like this before. There has been a massive surge over the past 2 or 3 years in the number of people keeping and eating bass, especially over the past year. Guys, over the past 8 or 9 months, I have had so many comments about people that are justifying keeping and eating bass. I know it's because groceries are going through the roof right now, and the price of meat is skyrocketing. Food costs are way up right now. So I understand, people think that they want, to get some free meat, even though it's probably not much cheaper by the time you go to the lake and spend all the money getting there than buying something at the store. But let's examine this a little bit here and dig into it and sort of have a discussion on where this is going to head us. Now, one of the things, the biggest turning point in the sport was back in the 70s when Ray Scott, came up with this don't kill your catch and release. That was a huge movement for the conservation, movement in this country, because prior to that, guys, nobody threw fish back. Nobody, including myself. I remember if we went fishing, that's what you did. You did not throw fish back. And it was only with this, when this came into the mainstream as far as, sport fishing and, don't kill your catch and, throw your fish back to be caught again another day, is it started taking on, a big movement. And it increased year after year and decade after decade to where most bass fishermen, from my experience in dealing with most bass fishermen practice catch and release a lot more, way more did it than kept them. A lot of people that wanted to keep and eat fish, they didn't keep and eat bass, because bass is not one of the best eating fishes, number one. Number two, they're highly pressured. There are a lot of other fish out there that are better eaten. You got, all this different species of catfish. You got all the perches out there. You got crappie, you got walleye. There's just a ton of fish out there that you can catch without having to keep bass. But I want to really talk to a little bit about the people that I have had interactions with that justify keeping and eating bass. I sort of wanted to get into their heads a little bit and have a discussion on that. Okay, the people that are adamant about this, and they get pissed. They're going to get pissed that I even did a video on it talking about, keeping eating bass. It's the same thing over and over again. Number one, it's like if I buy a fishing license, it's my right to keep what I want to. As long as it's legal, I'm going to keep it. That's the big one you hear all the time. And yeah, and nobody can argue with that. That is a justification for keeping bass. And then you hear the one, it's like, if I go out and I got a boat payment and it costs me $100 in gas to go to the lake, I'm going to have something to show for it. I'm not going to throw these fish back and, spend all this money and go fishing. And then you have a lot of people out there that simply think bass they're an infinite resource, and there's no way you're going to deplete them, and there's no way that you're going to overfish or, take too many fish out of a lake. But ultimately what you have in there is a lot of the people that I have talked to and interacted with, they are dug into the fact that they always go back to the same talking point. It's their right to do so, and nobody's going to tell them what they can and can't do. It's almost like a defiant attitude over the reality of the situation here. Now, we had a very similar situation in this country, back in the 20s and 30s, and the fact that a lot of our game in the country here, guys, it almost got extinct. I mean, the white-tailed deer populations were down to, very dangerously low numbers because everybody, they had that mentality. It's like, it's their right. They're going to get a hunting license. They're going to kill whatever they want to. And it's just more and more people, the conservation part of it never really took place. And we didn't have that very good conservation practices back then. But now here's what you have, and this is what I'm concerned about it. And before I get into this, I realize bass tournaments kill a ton of fish. I've been a big advocate of not having as many bass tournaments and having live release in the boat. I don't think we should be putting fish in live wells. I understand bass tournaments kill a lot of fish. That's another thing they say. It's like, oh, bass tournaments kill more fish than I'm ever going to kill keeping some. May or may not be true. If you put a fillet knife to a bass, it's dead. But if you have a bass in a live well and release it at the end of the day, it's got a pretty good chance of probably surviving. So you can't really equate that, even though bass tournaments do kill a lot of fish. But here is the reality of the situation that if I could speak to some of the people out there that are defiant about this and really have their heels dug in about this keeping and eating bass. And again, I'm not telling what you can and can't do. Do what you want to. I'm not trying to, be the catch and release police here. I'm just throwing out some ideas. But here's what we have to look at. As a society and bass anglers, guys, in 2025, it's different. It's not the same as it was back in 1970 in terms of what we can do for ourselves. Now, prior to 2025, we didn't have the fishing pressure we have now. We have more fishing pressure on our lakes and rivers across this country than any other time in the history. So when you're talking about creel limits and, practicing catch and release, it's not the same. It's not the same conversation as we had 30 or 40 years ago with it, because the fishing pressure was a fraction of what it is back then. So now what you have is you've got more anglers than ever that are fishing, and they're better than ever. The equipment and the technology is better than ever. They're more adept at catching these fish, so they're more pressured all the time. Eventually what you're going to have, guys, is, and again, I don't trust the conservation departments to do the right thing, because in my opinion they have way too liberal creel limits, and they drag their feet. The studies that they do, the way they collect data, in my opinion, is a very poor methodology. So I don't have a lot of faith in the conservation departments doing the right thing. I put more emphasis on the guys that fish every single day, and they see the reality of that situation, and they see what has changed in our sport. So I put more emphasis on the old school dudes that fish 200 days a year than I do the conservation department. So here's the challenge we have with this. If we say in Missouri here, you have a limit, a daily limit of bass that you can keep, and you have more and more people on the water utilizing and keeping those fish, and they're better and better at catching them. And the ones that they're keeping are prime brood stock. A lot of these guys, they don't throw anything back, guys. As long as it's a keeper, it goes in the boat. eventually it's going to have an impact on that. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand the impact that it's going to have is if you constantly are taking fish out more than's being put back in. We don't stock bass here in most parts of the country. They rely on, just creel limits and size limits and that type of stuff. But we all know how that fishing is getting tougher and tougher. It is every single lake across the country. And the problem we have here, and I've seen this over and over again, is you got the group of people out there that legally keep their fish. They do everything right. They get their license. They keep their limit, whatever like that. But then you've got two other segments of fishermen out there, or actually three. There's a lot of people out there in the country, guys, that, if they number one, like if they come from foreign countries, they may not understand our laws, and they may not understand that whole concept of catch and release. There's a lot of people out there that maybe don't know the laws that are just new to our country. That's number one. I see that a lot. I have seen it firsthand several times, and I know a lot of other people have. The other group of fishermen out there is there's people out there, guys, that keep under their limit, and they keep under their size limit, and they keep over their creel limit, because the problem that you have in most lakes across the country is we don't have enough conservation agents. So we have a handful of conservation agents that have a massive territory. Like here in Missouri, guys, we are so understaffed with conservation agents, it's ridiculous. I mean, I have fished in the state of Missouri my whole life, since the late 1960s. In that entire time, over 55 years of fishing in the state of Missouri, I have gotten checked twice in 55 years. And I'm on the water probably more than anybody out there. So what does that tell you? So when you have somebody out there, say you got some dude out there that maybe doesn't follow the law to the T, maybe they just sort of live like that, and they go out there and they're catching a bunch of fish, and they make the judgment call. It's like, okay, I've never seen a game warden out here. I think there's a pretty good chance that we're not going to get caught, especially if we keep an eye out for some boats and we don't let anybody sneak up on us. And shoot, they may keep 30 or 40 bass in one day, and half of them may be under the size limit. Don't think that doesn't go on, because it goes on a lot. And then also you have a lot of people doing that at night. There is a lot of people. In fact, I think the majority of bass anglers that do fish at night keep and eat the bass. But there's a lot of people that fish at night, and there's a lot of people that flay their bass out in the dark. And I see it all the time, because I'll get to the ramp at 6 o'clock in the morning and I can see bass carcasses right there on the ramp. Some guys have flayed them out and just dumped them over right there. And there's a lot of them that weren't keepers. I've seen it over and over again. And there's a lot of times I've seen 15 or 20 bass carcasses down there. So there is a lot of fish and game violations in this country that do not get detected. And that's one of the things I'm really concerned about, is like the number of people out there that are illegally keeping and harvesting bass. Okay, so at that point, what can you do about this? What are we going to do, and at what point are we going to do something about it? This it's easy and it's not easy at the same time, because one of the things that I try to teach people and try to educate people is, it doesn't matter what part of bass fishing it is, whether it's keeping your catch or just anything in fishing out there. We can't just focus on ourselves, and we can't be selfish, and we can't think about what's here and now for us. We can't be saying, I'm going to keep me, I'm going to go out every day this week and keep and catch a limit of bass, because that's my right and I'm going to do it. We have got to transcend that mentality of thinking and say, okay, man, if I go out every day this week and I catch my limit of bass, that's going to be 35 mature keeper bass that are out of this lake, just this week for me, 35 mature keeper bass. Now, if that's one person doing that, okay, now if everybody did that, if everybody had that same mentality, then you can see, the problem we have moving forward. But we have got to transcend that way of thinking. That's about what's in it for me and now. How many fish can I keep and catch? How many fish can I keep in the freezer? And we got to think about something that, people 30, 40 years from now are going to have. What type of fisheries are we going to have around the country, if we're so selfish and so focused on our own fishing and adamant that we're going to keep as many fish as we want to, what type of fishing are we going to hand off to our grandchildren here? That's what I always try to focus in on. So this is the tough one, guys. I'm telling you, this is a tough deal, because when you start talking about like people's perceived rights and freedoms, and then you start thinking about the bigger picture of how it's going to impact our country and our planet, down the road a little bit, there's a big disconnect I see with a lot of people with that. And a lot of people, they have their heels dug in a big way, and they don't want to hear it. And I'm sure that even me bringing this up, there's going to be a lot of guys pissed that, how dare I even bring this up, that may even be something wrong with me keeping as many fish as I want. But again, it's one of those things this is a conservation issue. And it's like, and one of the things I always want to fall back on here, guys, is I understand if you're one of those people out there that keep and eat bass, I understand the motivations behind that. And I'm not saying you're a bad person for doing that. I understand what goes into that. But one of the things about it is we have to realize things are changing. Things are not the same in 2025 as they were 10 or 15 or 20, 30 years ago. And that means that we're going to have to make some tough decisions. We're going to have to make some tough decisions that basically, it's not just about us. It's about what we are going to leave behind here. And a lot of people have a hard time, that's a stretch for a lot of people to think like that. Ultimately, I don't think that anything that I say or any type of encouragement of people having to do that, I don't think that's going to change everything, because I think when people have a worldview and the whole mentality of keeping and catching bass to eat is a worldview. When you have a worldview that's ingrained into your, how you live your life, most people are not willing to change that worldview. So the only way that this would change eventually is if we have laws and regulations in place, where we have stricter creel limits, we have maybe slot limits, we have periods of the year where you simply can't keep bass, like during the spawn. But I have not seen the conservation department, moving in that direction. They always drag their feet. I have observed the conservation departments around this country my entire life, and one of the things that I have seen with them is they do drag their feet, and they don't understand the reality of the change that we have had here. It's only people like myself or older guys that have seen what has happened over the past 30 or 40 years that understand what's happening right now. But if you're a 28 or 30-year-old conservation agent that wasn't even alive back then, and most of the information you have is from book studies or maybe a couple years in the field, you don't really understand what is taking place here. And it's I don't know, man. It's just one of those things. It's a tough deal. It's a tough topic to talk about, and I see a lot of apathy in it. But ultimately, the thing that's going to change is when our fisheries start to suffer from that, and fishing gets tougher and tougher, and then usually by then it's a little bit too late. But one of the things about it, guys, if you guys want some fish to eat, and you're somebody likes to keep and eat bass, just shoot me a message. I'll give you guys a bunch of tips and advice on how to catch catfish, how to catch white bass, how to catch crappie, how to catch walleye, which are a lot better eaten. And I think that if you fry up a walleye or a mess of crappie or even some perch, you're never going to want to eat a bass again. So I'd be glad to help you guys out there to save a few bass. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. We'll talk later.